Cannabis Smith, good morning. I know you want to talk to us about crime and the perception of crime. However, you have caused a little bit of a stir this morning. So I think we need to start with the cannabis. How much of it did you smoke and when did you smoke it?
I smoked it a few times at university more than 25 years ago. I was wrong, and we now, of course, know a lot more about the potential damage that cannabis can do, particularly links to mental health problems, the fact that it's becoming stronger, and I think the Prime Minister was right yesterday when he said we now need to look at whether or not we should reclassify it. And next week, of course, we'll be launching a big consultation on how we update drug strategy. There are twice as many people now in treatment as there were previously. We've seen the levels of crime that are linked to drug taking really falling, but we want to get out and ask those people who are working with drug users themselves, families and others, the police, what more we can do now to update our drug strategy.
Well, any other drugs that you took at university?
No.
What sort of signals does this send to people who are university age or young people now saying, well, she did it and she's the Home Secretary now, so why shouldn't I?
Well, because it was wrong, because we now know a lot more about the harm that it does. And actually we're seeing fewer young people taking drugs, fewer people generally taking cannabis now than previously. And that's because of the efforts that we've put into informing people about the harms, into tackling that problematic drug use and the effect it has on our communities. But today, of course, we'll also be focusing on our crime strategy. We've seen crime falling by a third over the last 10 years. Big successes. There's more that we can do, and today I want to talk about how we can make sure that local people are really engaged, how we can make sure there's more local information, how we can work across government to tackle crime, how we can work with business and others to actually design out the opportunities for crime.
I'll come back. I promise to come back to that in just a second. Just one more point I want to pick up. If fewer people are taking cannabis, why do you need to reclassify it?
Well, because we know now about the fact that there are some forms of cannabis that are getting much stronger, that there are clear links to mental health problems, and it's right that we should look at that reclassification as sending a strong message about those potential harms.
OK. Moving on to the government's crime strategy, you want to persuade us that we should feel safe. Well, the best way to do that is actually to make us safer, isn't it?
Absolutely, which is why the fact that crime has fallen by a third, why, you know, in 1997 you were likely to be burgled once every 50 years, now once every 25 years, sorry, and now that's down to less than once every 40 years, where we've seen car crime halved. All of those things make us safer, and I hope they make us feel safer as well. But people also want to know what's going on at a local level. You know, how do I get information about crime levels in relation to my particular area, and importantly, how do I then feed into the priorities that local police and other partners are working on? How can I tell them that, you know, I think there's a problem down the road and something needs to happen?
If I might interrupt, how can you get a police officer to investigate a low-level robbery? Because a lot of people complain that just doesn't happen.
Well, what's important is that we're increasingly seeing, and by next April we'll see, neighbourhood policing teams all over the country, supported by and working with police community support officers, with officers from local councils who are there, you know, on the streets, day in, day out, talking to local people, you know, talking about where a car's been damaged or where there's vandalism, thinking together about what they can actually do to tackle that, involving local people in tackling that crime. Now, that's why, of course, we've actually seen levels of concern about antisocial behaviour coming down over recent years, but we've got to keep working at it. And I think the way you do that is bringing all of those partners that are tackling crime together to do it more effectively.
Let's go back to your mission just for one last point, if I may. You've admitted to taking cannabis. Other senior politicians have admitted to doing it as well. Should we assume, basically, that everybody of your particular generation took drugs when they were younger?
No, you shouldn't assume that. I did on a few occasions. I was wrong. Actually, I think what we should focus on is the difference that people are making today to people's lives. That was what I was elected to do, and that's what I'll be focusing on today. Continuing our drive to cut crime, helping local people to feel safer, joining up across government, working with business to continue that progress on making people feel safer and cutting crime levels.
And if you thought that one day you might be a Home Secretary when you were at Oxford, would you have smoked the cannabis then?
I don't know, but I know it's wrong now.
OK. Jacqui Smith, thank you very much.